Thanks a lot, Steve. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming up here. They've bolted the doors so that no one other than someone with some sort of diseased interest in push-to-talk radio can enter. And I do thank you for coming. Again, my name's Steve Henke with Zelatech out of Atlanta. And we're going to talk about commercial applications of Asterisk for PTT radio systems. One of the things we'll be using to demonstrate this is for fun amateur radio, which was at the core of some of the initial development for PTT radio integration with Asterisk. But we want to take it to that level where you can actually take this to a marketplace. You can serve a need for an organization or some customer in the field. And so, again, thanks to Digium and the rest of the gang for sponsoring this event and having us. And thanks to you guys in the Asterisk community for attending. I also want to give a shout out of thanks to Jim Dixon and Steve Rogers, other developers of this project, for their foundational work to bring PTT radio to Asterisk. So let's go through a couple of introductions here. Again, that's me. I've been involved in telecommunications with an emphasis on wireless telecommunications and good old push-to-talk communications. It's design, manufacturing, marketing for a heck of a long time. And I wanted to do some things to bring into the IP community various products and services for push-to-talk radio systems, and was looking around in 2004, 2005 era and stumbled upon a group of people in Atlanta, Georgia called the Atlanta Asterisk Users Group. And a tremendous resource of very innovative people. About a quarter to a third of them had a radio background, so my ideas were fairly warmly received. And I was even more pleasantly surprised to discover that there had already been some work done for push-to-talk radio in the very guts and infrastructure of Asterisk. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But now that you know a little bit about me, I'd like to find out a little bit about you by a show of hands so I can kind of move in your direction to make an effective presentation here. How many people have some sort of a background with push-to-talk radio from a professional or amateur background? Okay. I'll try not to bore you guys too much. How many people have dared to build Asterisk from, bare metal from the sources and put together a system? Okay, gee. There's definitely quite an overlap between those two groups. How many people are voice over IP VARs, dealers, or customer premises equipment suppliers? You go out and sell Asterisk to people. All right, good. Well, like I said, my goal is to come up with a way to help you do more of that and discover how push-to-talk radio can help you do that. A little background on push-to-talk radio. And you don't have to take pictures of the screen. This is all going to be posted within the next 10 or 20 days or something like that, I think. And my slideshow presentation will also be up at the site that you see down on the bottom of the screen. So you can get that there too. So push-to-talk radio, it's communications you can depend on. It's not just one thing. It's a number of different things, and it's part of an integral system that involves people, processes, procedures, technology, and the like. And, if you watch the news, you'll see people walking around in the darndest of conditions using two-way radio. And there's a wide variety of equipment out there supporting push-to-talk radio communications. This is a smattering of pictures of various devices, but from a portable standpoint, what they all seem to have in common is they're substantially larger than your average cellular telephone. They've got a great big battery pack on the back, which is very good because in the electronic side of them, they're not flea power where they're transmitting a few tens of milliwatts just to get to a cell site that's down the street. These radios put out 4 or 5 watts worth of transmitter power so they can go line of sight. This very little product, which happens to be on some of the amateur radio frequencies, but the same technology translates over into professional gear. I could walk out on the street, and if the International Space Station is passing overhead and making a 10 or 15 minute pass, And one of the bored radio amateurs who is on the space station at that time has walked over to their amateur radio station. He and I could talk directly from this radio to that radio as it passes overhead. So basically we're limited to line of sight communications. And again, that's the portable radios are capable of that, and there are mobile equipment with substantially higher power that can use better antennas on top of vehicles. So that's kind of the background of push-to-talk radio, professional grade. And there are a wide variety of devices these days that are now wireless, everything from little tablets and PCs and Wi-Fi phones and cellular phones. All of those, it turns out, can be bridged through Asterisk in an interoperable system, and we'll get to talking about how that gets done here in a bit. Now, a lot of people are familiar with some of the wireless products that are low-cost commodity products that are available blister-packed at a big box retailer. Those have some technologies in common with the professional radio, but at some points they split. They're often not quite as rugged. You know, a product like this you can throw across the room. A product like that's a little more delicate. They have reduced power. The audio may not sound as good, but you'll still come across them in the marketplace. And this technology also enables you to use them through Asterisk if you need to. And you can't underestimate the power of those things because there's a wide variety of accessories, and for some people, they can make a great entry-level option. And when you get beyond trying to do simple point-to-point communications, you may be trying to establish communications that's something that goes beyond line of sight. You're not so lucky as to have it as the space station coming overhead. Then you need some infrastructure. First of all, there's the traditional base station, which may have an antenna like one of the many you see in place in this photograph, or you may have a radio repeater connected to one of those antennas. I think these guys may be on top of a building in New Orleans somewhere, putting up an antenna on short notice for some particular service. You don't need that to do any of this, but it's an example of just how far you can take it if you need to. But the radio repeater is a great concept. It's a radio that is capable of simultaneously receiving and retransmitting signals. So again, with that line of sight communications that's capable, that these devices are capable of, you can transmit, say, from a portable radio. Your signal can be received by an antenna on top of a building, mountain, orbiting spaceship, wherever you, a tall tower, wherever you put it, and that can be relayed to other units that may be mobile, portable, or fixed. And one of the elements that we show in this diagram is somebody at a dispatch center, and more about that, some of the unique killer applications and open source elements of Asterisk that can help you do that feature. So, well, before I really get into this slide, I'd like to quickly address an issue that some people asked me about in our exhibit here, and that is, what about regulatory issues? And you do need to keep those in mind. Licensing is required by the professional product because they have so much power and can transmit so far. Almost always, whether it's a police department or a local government or a business or an industry, they've secured for the cost of several $100s an operating permit from in the U.S. It's the Federal Communications Commission, it's Industry Canada in Canada. Around the world, your results may vary. For example, I think some of the examples of the disaster relief operations, or there are places where there are emerging economies or emerging states or failed states or even war zones. Your regulatory agency may vary or even be non-existent. But that's something that you need to address. Now, usually you're not starting an Asterisk system from scratch. There's an existing communication system in place. For example, you may want to sell to a resort or hotel or convention center like the complex that we're in now. And you'd like to get in there and start selling them PBXs and Asterisk voice over IP system. When you walk around and you see that their staff is carrying devices like this. If you have the ability to merge Asterisk voice over IP with radio over IP, you can say, first of all, it's an excuse to get a meeting with them. You can say, I've got something new and unique I want to show you. And you can distinguish yourself from your competition. And for a lot of places, we call it the puppy dog effect, meaning like at a pet store, you're given one, you play with it, they see it works. They immediately want you to install their Asterisk server with this capability so that you can be a part of their system and they can benefit from it. And once you get that first system in, you're a regular vendor to them, and you can begin to show them all of the other things that Asterisk can do for them. And you may even displace their existing PBX. But the key thing to keep in mind is that there's what we call strategic communications. And that's one thing that everybody pretty much takes for granted and visualizes when they see Asterisk. That's the one-on-one telephone call. And that's typified by long call setup times. I'm going to pick up a device, and I'm going to enter a number, and I'm going to wait for it to ring, and somebody's going to answer, and then we're going to have a conversation that may be low temperature or casual. You may say, well, I don't know, what do you want to do? And so there's a good general exchange. Now, push-to-talk radio has a different kind of communications. We like to call those tactical communications. Intrinsic in the push-to-talk radio, of course, you can't have one-on-one conversations, but in a lot of cases, it's one-to-many. It's like an open intercom or paging channel. And they're immediate. I mean, in push-to-talk radio, it's numbered in milliseconds from the time the person hits the button to talk on the side of that until that channel is open and everyone else in that group hears his communications. It's an immediate requirement. We don't have time to call 6 different people and find out who can help with a cleanup in aisle 17 or something like that in a big box retailer. They want an immediate response. Or in an industrial or a security thing, it's like, can anyone come and help me now? They want an immediate response. Or, one of the most famous of all push-to-talk transmissions was, Houston, we have a problem. That needed to immediately go out to a large number of people that were participating in an organization to alert them that, they were on call and they needed to respond to the issue at hand. So in VoIP, we deal with issues like, fatal errors, seg faults, Asterisk crashed. There's a little bit of latency introduced by carriers or signaling protocols. There may be an occasional dropped packet that occurs in gaps in voice. Now, that is pretty darned important when it comes to these tactical communications. One thing